You've been lied to by movies, by songs, by Instagram captions, lied to by people who meant well, and by those who didn't. And worst of all, you've been lied to by your own instincts. You thought age meant maturity. You thought a woman who looks grown was grown. But no one told you this. Many women never actually grow up. Not emotionally, not psychologically, not where it matters. And no, that's not an insult. It's not even an accusation. It's a reality. One Carl Jung saw coming long before anyone was ready to hear it. While you were busy learning how to be a provider, a protector, a man, no one handed you the map for navigating the women still stuck in girlhood. They laugh, they flirt, they charm, but they do not stand beside you as equals. They collapse when life gets heavy. They spiral when it gets boring. They look to you to be the hero in a story they refuse to write for themselves. And it's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to see it now. Maybe you've dated her. Maybe you married her. Maybe you're still trying to fix her. But something feels off, doesn't it? You feel guilty for pulling away. You feel confused by her chaos. You feel like the villain for not being the savior. But Jung had a name for her. Puella Eterna, the eternal girl. She's not just young at heart. She's psychologically frozen in time. Not physically, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally. She's trapped in a dream world where life should be magical, where problems should vanish, and where someone else, you, should handle anything real. And every time you try to ground her in reality, she either melts down or disappears. You thought it was trauma or immaturity, but it was deeper than that. It was a defense mechanism, a refusal to grow. Jung studied this. He found that while boys avoid maturity through rebellion or isolation, girls avoid it through fantasy, romantic dreams, emotional dependence, permanent escapism. The eternal girl doesn't confront life. She dances around it. And what does that make you? The man who follows, the man who explains, the man who carries the weight for two. You didn't sign up to be her father, her therapist, her guide, but somehow you became all of them. And still, she doesn't grow. You tell yourself you're strong for holding it all. But the truth? You're shrinking. You're softening your edges. You're making yourself smaller to keep her balanced. You've confused being needed with being loved. You've confused emotional chaos with depth. But this isn't love. This is projection. This is codependency. This is unconsciousness. And here's the part you have to face. If she won't grow, you will have to. Or you'll keep reliving the same relationship again and again. Because the more she resists responsibility, the more you take it on. And the more you do, the more you lose your center. You become her foundation. But you were never supposed to be. She craves freedom, but fears structure. She wants intimacy, but rejects accountability. She wants the fantasy of partnership with none of the weight. And you? You thought this was femininity. But Jung would have told you, real feminine energy isn't weak. It's rooted, it's clear, it's fierce when matured. What you're experiencing isn't femininity. It's arrested development in disguise. You've been orbiting around a persona, a mask crafted by culture, polished by social media, rewarded for staying soft, small, and dependent. And now you're exhausted. You're exhausted because deep down, you were never meant to carry someone else's soul. You thought you were building a relationship. But what you were actually building was a shelter for her fragility, a place where she could hide from adulthood while pretending to live in it. And here's the haunting part. She didn't even know she was doing it, because she was raised for charm, not character. Rewarded for beauty, not strength. Taught to please, never to lead. So what happens? She survives through performance. She wears the mask well, light, easy, whimsical. But behind it, no structure, no spine, just a woman-shaped girl clinging to a life that never forces her to grow. And you? You became her scaffolding. You taught her to lean on you for stability, for sanity, for validation. And every time she spiraled, you caught her. Every time she avoided, you filled in the blanks. Every time she broke, you glued her back together. But that's not strength. That's surrender. You surrendered your vision, your focus, your edge. You let her chaos define your days, and you told yourself it was love. But love without growth isn't love. It's entrapment. Jung said it clearly. Whatever you do not bring into consciousness will return as fate. And fate always finds its way through repetition. So if you don't wake up to this pattern, it will keep choosing for you. Over and over again, you'll end up with the same kind of woman, the same emotional storms, the same confusion wrapped in romance. Until one day, your soul starts to whisper, "This isn't it." And that whisper will turn into a scream. Because deep down, you know something's off. You're carrying weight that isn't yours. You're solving problems you didn't create. You're calming storms that never should have made it to your door. And every time you forgive it, you betray yourself. Because you weren't built to parent your partner. You weren't built to explain reality to someone running from it. You were built to stand in truth, to discern, to walk forward, not in fantasy, but in clarity. And clarity doesn't come from fixing her. It comes from facing you. Facing the parts of you that needed to be needed. That got high off being her hero. That confused her helplessness with vulnerability and her chaos with depth. That part of you has to die. Because until it does, you'll keep attracting women who haven't lived in their own skin long enough to develop a self. And here's the most painful part. It's not entirely her fault. She was trained to avoid her shadow. She was never told that real femininity isn't in the twirl of a dress or the tilt of a laugh. It's in presence. It's in responsibility. It's in the quiet strength of self-awareness. But she never learned that. So now, you must. You must learn what no one taught you. To stop romanticizing women who haven't met themselves. To stop confusing emotional neediness with feminine essence. To stop sacrificing your peace for the illusion of intimacy. Because when you try to save someone who doesn't want to grow, you don't just lose them. You lose yourself. So what now? Now, you open your eyes. You stop waiting for her to grow. You stop explaining reality to someone who refuses to live in it. You stop thinking it's noble to be drained. You stop making excuses for the emotional chaos that's been eating away at your focus, your discipline, your fire. And you start doing the work. The real work. Not on her. On you. Because this was never about her. It was about what you accepted. What you tolerated. What you mistook for love. Carl Jung gave us a map. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole. It's not about fixing someone else. It's about integrating your own shadow, facing your own unresolved patterns, growing into a man who doesn't just want to be needed, but who knows himself well enough to be free. Free from projection, free from emotional dependency, free from the spell of the eternal girl. And when you become that man, something shifts. You no longer chase beauty. You seek depth. You no longer fall for charm. You look for character. You no longer confuse softness for femininity. You recognize power wrapped in grace. You stop orbiting women who resist reality, and you begin to lead your own. You set standards, not to control, but to protect your energy. You say no, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Because you know now that not every connection deserves your presence. Not every spark is worth a fire. Not every damsel is worth the rescue. You walk away, not because you're cruel, but because you're clear. And when you finally meet a woman who has grown, who has done the work, who has faced her own shadow and now stands tall, you'll recognize her. Not because she needs you, but because she matches you. She doesn't shrink when life gets hard. She steps in. She doesn't perform womanhood. She embodies it. She doesn't need you to rescue her from her story, because she's already written it. And when you stand next to her, you'll feel it. The difference. No guilt. No chaos. No rescuing. Just two whole people walking side by side. But that future? It starts with this moment. With you seeing the pattern. With you breaking the spell. With you growing up. Not because you were immature, but because you were unconscious. And now, you're not. So let it hurt. Let the guilt wash over you. Let the truth sting. Not to punish you, but to wake you up. Because from this moment on, you are out of excuses. You can no longer pretend you don't see it. You do see it. And once you see it, you never go back. You become the man who walks forward. Not perfect, not broken, but clear. And that man is finally free.